Are we missing someone?
Don't
Peg
believe
doesn't
so.
have a picture.
All right, we are live.
Okay, I will call the meeting to order.
Don't.
And once again, as the public knows,
All
we
right,
are
we are
doing
live.
Zoom meetings. Until further notice, the meetings can also be viewed on our YouTube channel. Do we have an approval for the minutes of May 5th?
I'll
Make
make a
a motion.
motion.
I'll second Marilyn's motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, and approval of the minutes of May 12th. That was a special meeting.
Arnie will move it.
Arnie, okay. Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. And we have the approval of the minutes from May 13th. That was also a special meeting. We have a motion to accept them as submitted.
I'll make the motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. You should have before you the CSE, CPSC recommendations. If there are no questions or concerns on that, I will ask that we have a motion to accept them as submitted.
I'll make it.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right, we are up to public comment. Corey, was there any public comment that was submitted prior?
No, I haven't received anything.
Okay. And number 4, discussion items. We have scheduled previously the super eval workshop for June 17th at 5:30. We'll get confirmation in June whether that will still be held or not, or how it will be held. And a little bit later, we will have a presentation from BCA on the facilities. Are there any other reports that the facilities wants to address now? Or wait until after the presentation?
This is Meg. I don't have anything else.
Okay. All right. Correspondence. I have these, Larry, or do you want to? It's up to you.
Actually, you've got the awards there, I think, Rhonda,
Okay.
so probably would be better if you mention them.
All right. All right, so we have a couple of 3 awards, and this is from the New York State School Boards Association, and these are Board of Achievement Awards. The first one is awarded to Miranda McDonald. Board Achievement Award to Miranda McDonald, Walton Central School District, for the participation in the New York State School Boards Association Leadership Development Training, and you have been awarded 75 points for the 2020 year. So
Thank you.
congratulations.
Thank you.
And the second award is Board of Excellence Award to Kevin Charles, Walton Central School District, for the participation in the New York State School Boards Association Leadership Development Opportunities. And you have been awarded 150 points for the 2020 school year.
Thank you.
Congratulations. And next we have Board of Excellence Award to Marilyn Lewis, Walton Central School District, for participating in the New York State School Boards Association Leadership Development Opportunities. And you have been awarded 150 points for the 2020 school year.
Thank you.
So congratulations. And we do not have any other correspondence. We are up to presentation for the capital project. So I will turn this over to Scott.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Good to see everybody again. Before I begin, I want to introduce Kyle Smith, who's one of the other faces here on the Brady Bunch assembly we have here. Kyle has been working with us, working with me specifically on the capital outlay project, which is up at SCD right now. And hopefully we'll be working with us in the future as we look at other things. Tonight, we're going to give a presentation and go over what we've come up with after many months of discussion and hard work by the Facilities Committee. I went back and looked at my calendar, and I believe our first meeting to start on this process was on September 19th, 2017. So we've been at this for 32 months, looking at different options and going through possible ideas to deal with facilities issues. So I'm pleased tonight to be able to present what we've come up with as a group and go over it with the full board. Excuse me if I cough or anything. I've got some seasonal allergies. So, but I'm going to share my screen and go through a few documents which I believe you have. Excuse me. The first one, let me see if I can make this work. Okay. So, can you see this screen, which is the budget spreadsheet?
Yes.
Okay. So this spreadsheet outlines the items that the group has come up with and has rated as the highest priorities for a potential capital project. And we've looked at a lot of different items. We started with the building condition survey items that were done back in 2014, 2015, and we used that as a basis to look at items. And then from that, we've kind of prioritize them into things that really are, in the committee's eyes, sort of critical to take care of from an infrastructure perspective. We've really tried to focus on important items for the buildings and the students and how the people use these facilities, and we've not focused on things that would be nice to have. We could have them maybe in different economic times. We've really focused on things that really need to be addressed now. So the first item that's on there is parking lot reconfiguration and repaving and sidewalks. So it's basically looking at all of the driveways and parking areas in the high school, middle school complex, making improvements to those. And really, we went back and forth quite a bit, looking at different potential options for how do we increase parking out in front of the building? How do we make it safer for parents and students to access the site? How do we make it safer for bus pickup and drop off? You know, make sure that we have clean ways for the buses to move through the site with minimal interaction with parent drop off. So there was a lot of things that were talked about, and we looked at quite a few different options. I'm also going to bring up the other document that I believe you can see now. This was in your packet too. This shows the preliminary layout that we've come up with after much discussion. I do want to stress that while this is close to probably a final design, it is not the final design. What typically happens is if a project is approved, then there'll be yet again another series of meetings to refine this and make sure that we've really gotten everything that the district is looking for. But this is very close. We feel this is a very close sketch to show what we're looking at. And I will point out a couple of things. Everybody's familiar with the current drive. Can you all see my cursor?
Yep.
Okay. So this is the drive, the current drive that you have. We're proposing that we come up to what we're looking at here is a three-way intersection. And this would allow people to come up, stop, and then during times of bus pickup and drop off, we are actually proposing that there be a swing gate right here, this little white line, that would stop anybody who comes up this drive from turning right and interacting with the buses. The buses will still line up along the front of the building as they currently do. We're not changing that. But we did think it was important during those 15 minutes in the morning and those 15 minutes in the afternoon to stop as much traffic interaction as possible with the buses. And that's to protect the students going out to the buses. So people would come to this. They would be allowed during bus pickup and drop off to come through into the back parking lot, which has been reconfigured. We've actually eliminated a row of parking where this gray area is here and created a new parent drop-off area. So parents could come and pick up and drop off along this whole area where this new sidewalk is shown. And you can see directional arrows. So this would be one-way traffic. They could pick up and then they could move out and they could exit and then leave the site. The biggest change is how you park in front of the building. So we're actually proposing a new lot that stretches out and doubles the capacity of what you currently have and goes all the way, you can see around this curve. Now, you'll know that the bank drops off there. So we are proposing to bring in new structural fill into that area and to make that a level area so that now you have a level parking lot and it increases the parking spaces quite a bit there. We're looking at a total of 140 spaces along in the front of the building now with this design. And in the other parking lot, there'll be, I think that's 85 spaces. I don't have my glasses on, but I think it's 85. Now there is a loss of spaces on this small lot because of this parent drop-off, but we've more than picked them up on the larger lot. And the goal was to try to get more parking in front of the building because that's where people park anyway. A lot of people park on the grass, so we're trying to eliminate that. We're also proposing that in this parking area, we've put a swing gate right here as well. So if people are in this parking area and buses are picking up and dropping, or picking up or dropping off, if they're in here and they come to this point, they're not allowed to take a right turn into this bus lane. They will have to exit out of, or they're actually not allowed to come out of the parking lot at all. Excuse me, I'm sorry. There is enough room for them to back up and go back. What we're trying to do is stop cars from interacting with the buses and creating a mini traffic jam in this area. We talked about this quite a bit, and as I said, this is not a final plan, but it's a very good concept. We all feel that meets the needs and vastly improves the situation that you're dealing with now. The other thing that I want to point out on this document is these areas of orange are designating areas that were also deemed essential for a potential project, and that is to replace the roof in those areas. So that is also documented on the spreadsheet. So those are two of the biggest items, the roofs and the parking lot reconfiguration. Before I move back to the budget, I just would ask, are there any questions? And please, as I'm talking, please don't hesitate to jump in and ask questions too.
I just have a couple questions. One, you have arrows over on the smaller parking lot by the new parent drop off. And you said that while there's bus loading or unloading, that people can't come in off that Stockton Avenue entrance and make a right into the parking lot. So we would allow students who would otherwise park in that smaller lot to park in the front and come in off the Maple Street entrance. I mean, that's not something we do now. Of course, also the bus and the parking are not cordoned off or separated from one another. So that's our intent would be to drive some of that traffic up Maple Street.
Well, I think the goal in that was to try to, as I said, move more parking over into the front of the building. And during those periods of time, yes, people could still exit the site over towards Maple.
Okay.
But
Only
when-
because that larger lot, I mean, and obviously this is conceptual, but just, kind of to scale, it doesn't look like the driving lane through there would permit kind of bi-directional traffic flow. So it seems like it would have to be as drawn almost one way.
No, it's actually drawn to scale. We've got bi-directional traffic in there.
You do? Okay.
Yeah, yep.
All right. The only other thing, we would be steepening the grade in this. Kevin, Graydon, forgive me, you guys live and breathe this, and thank God for you. But our neighbors down on Stockton Avenue, the Coppolas, the Reynolds, with the bank getting steeper and there being less opportunity for runoff and things like that, a higher grade, it does that. Just water mitigation, things like that, things that I'm sure are being thought through, but should be a concern or at least consideration to us. So
Yes, absolutely. This design it includes dollars to deal with the water mitigation. That's part and parcel of any kind of parking lot redesign that you have to deal with.
yeah, and I thought so. I just wanted to make sure that our neighbors were aware of that too. So thank you.
And Paul, I know when the few meetings that I had attended, the focus, well, it was not the intent to push more traffic down onto Maple Street because that would cause a problem. There are no sidewalks on Maple Street. So when students are missed, but it would just be that swing gate would come into play just when the buses are loading and, ready to pull out. So there may be a delay for other people to leave. Either they leave prior or they just wait, just a little bit longer until those buses pull out because that is the priority, with the students on those buses.
Right. But what I'm saying is some of that smaller lot, the capacity being diminished over there for cars because of that parent drop off, presumably some of our students would be parking in front as well.
Right.
So when they're arriving in the morning, they would have to come up Maple unless they were arriving before the buses were unloading or after they were unloading. But otherwise, we'd probably be backing up down to Stockton. So
I think that's correct, Paul. And when we looked at that, we thought probably your staff may also be in that situation for coming up and parking and utilizing that front lot as well. Really the focus of the drop-off traffic, which tends to be our heavier traffic, dropping off in that area and then having that one way and right back out. So we did look at that. I think what it came down to is we couldn't force all the traffic through one entrance and cut off the other. It couldn't flow. We tried it in 3 different reiterations and we couldn't make it work.
Oh yeah, and I completely support how it's kind of drawn now, increasing the parking. All of our sporting events, chorus, the concerts, theater shows, all of those, we ask people to come in through the front. And I find a lot of times we are at capacity there again, as Scott mentioned, people parking on lawns, things like that. So I completely support doubling the parking capacity up front. So, but
we looked at some of the soils out there too, Paul, and thank goodness they're not some of our county's worst soils. It's on a glacial till, which is pretty well drained. But they are going to work through those details as you ask about the water control off those lots.
Well, great. And I figure with you on the committee, they certainly were. So thank you.
So I'm going to go back to the budget spreadsheet to just talk about some of the other items that we discussed and put on the list. So I did talk, item number 1 is the parking lot. Items 2, 3, and 4 are all areas of roof replacement. Then we also have a line item in here for upgrading and securing the main entry. And that's really looking at hardening the entrance so that we have people stopped outside. And then what we're envisioning is doing what many school districts are doing. You get buzzed in from the outside and you come into that vestibule and you're stopped in the vestibule and you're checked in there. So we've got to look at some ways to make that work. And that might be as simple as having some small renovations on the one side of the vestibule to create an attendance area where people can be checked in safely through a teller type window that's got bulletproof glass in it so that person is secure. And then once people have signed in and have gone through your system, then they can get let into the building. Then item number 6 and item number 7 kind of go together. So we looked at different ways to improve energy performance and to create some energy savings for the district. And we actually, we talked about doing it in different ways, possibly doing an energy performance contract, possibly doing it in the capital project. We kind of looked at it from different angles. We actually had Train come in and give us some ideas about what could be done if we did an energy performance contract. And so some of these items are items 6 through 11 are items that actually 6 through and Townsend too, the first item on Townsend, were items that Train talked about. But these are all items that can be done in a capital project as well. And items 6 and 7, the lighting replacement and ceiling replacement, we felt this was a better way to approach it. That part of the project would involve putting in new lighting fixtures, new LED lighting fixtures, also replacing areas of ceiling throughout the buildings that are what we call concealed spline ceilings. So there's no access above them. They're very old. They've been there for a long time. And so are the lights. We would put in a new suspended ceiling with new lay-in lights, which now would give you access above those ceilings for future work, running cabling, wiring, things of that nature. It makes it much more easier and cost-effective to do future work in those areas. And it will also improve the aesthetics of the corridors a great deal. You'll have a lot brighter lighting in there, which is using a lot less energy, and it'll be very attractive. It'll brighten up the corridors quite a bit, which if you've seen buildings that have been retrofitted with new ceilings and new lights, it does really do a remarkable difference for the appearance of the building, which we think would be beneficial for the students and staff. We also looked at doing better building envelope improvements, and that is looking at making sure that all the perimeter edges of the building where the roof, deck, and the walls meet are sealed. In most school situations that we see around the state, that is not the case. There's an air gap there, and you just have heat going right out. So that's proposed in there to seal that up. Also looking at improving and replacing the building automation control system, which will make the equipment that you own run much more efficiently on set schedules that you can control. And also replacing some transformers that are well past their useful life, and putting some thermostatic controls on the refrigerators. And then when you jump over to Townsend, same thing with the lighting system replacement. And then we also included a line item in here. This was an item that was talked about in the building condition survey and was studied a few years ago. There are some structural floor issues that while they're not unsafe right now, it's something that should be addressed for the long-term safety and health of that building, to fix those flooring issues. And then we also talked about there is an underground tank there that makes sense to remove that as part of this project. To get that out, you have to monitor that all the time, and it's getting more and more difficult to do that. So it made sense to add that to the project. So all told, we're looking at just a little under 5.5 million of these improvements. We are showing a construction contingency of 10%, which brings it up to just over $6 million in construction costs. Then on top of that, there are project incidental costs, which are budgeted at approximately 20%. And that's kind of the standard in the industry and with the state education department. So all told, that would bring the project up to 7.209 million. And we looked at lots of different options, and everything from 4 million to 10 million to more. And this really seemed to be the right fit for dealing with the infrastructure needs that are the most pressing. And then I believe Meg's going to talk about the financial aspect of this and what that means. And it's the right fit from that perspective as well. So I don't know, Meg, if you want to talk about that before we get into the timing of a potential project.
Sure, I can do that. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, so with the proposed project, the annual debt service for the school district share is up slightly over 130,000, somewhere between 130 and 135. We are anticipating debt service that we're currently paying on retiring and us paying off those bonds completely. And so we'll have about $87,000 of savings that we can move from bonds we're currently paying on to paying for this project. So that leaves about $45,000 net additional cost to the district for the project. However, it has been estimated that we could save up to $70,000 a year in electricity costs based on the energy improvements that are being put in with the building envelope improvements and the lighting upgrades. So what that means is if we truly achieve that $70,000 in utility savings, the project would result on average in a net positive cash flow to the district of somewhere in the range of $25,000. So the good thing about that is it gives us some leeway on the energy savings. If we don't achieve exactly what's been projected, we anticipate that it will be still a neutral or positive cash flow project to the district. Are there any questions on that piece of it? I know that's probably the question that was weighing on everyone's mind as Scott was talking about a $7 million project.
Oh, yes.
No, I think Meg has done an excellent job working with our financial partners to determine that this is good timing for a project to come forward so that it doesn't shock anybody from a tax standpoint. And they've done an excellent job crunching the numbers on that and whittling this down. I mean, when we started in 2017, we were looking at 22 million for projects. And we've pared it down year after year and got it to what's absolutely essential. And we fully believe what is absolutely essential is the 7 million figure. And the timing has lined up where our debt services have come off, like Meg said, and we add in the benefits of the energy efficiency upgrades to this, and then it makes it a very viable project, not on the backs of our taxpayers.
Mm-hmm. And bonding in this current interest rate environment would be favorable.
Slowly.
Absolutely. Okay, if you'd like, I'll talk a little bit about a potential schedule here. I'm going to share my screen again here. Oops, I got to hit the share button. That helps. Okay. All right, can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay. So this is a timeline that we've been working through and talking about in the facilities group. And so this project scoping line item, that's the development of the project. So while we say February to April 2020, it was really September 2017 to April 2020. We've been talking and trying to look through a lot of different options for a long time to come to this scope. And tonight is the night where we present it to you. Now, one of the things I forgot to update on this schedule, and I apologize for that, is we had some of these different options on here that we talked about in the facilities committee. What we're presenting to you tonight is the 7.2 million. So that is the final option. Well, these were just some options that we were looking at. What happens after tonight, if the board agrees that this makes sense to move towards a capital project, you don't have to make that decision tonight that yes, we're going out to a vote. We just need to decide that yes, it makes sense to continue down this path. We thought it was important, though, to get the board to agree that this is the way to go, because really through June and September would be the time that you start talking about this with the public. This is what we want to do, and we'd like to vote on this in the fall. And so we could start working with you to help getting information out to the public in a variety of ways on your website, through newsletters and flyers to parents, public meetings where there's presentations and we talk about this. All that would lead up to, there are some specific actions that you have to do. Now, for the sake of this schedule, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, we made an assumption that we would do a public referendum around November 17th. Now that date doesn't have to be firm. We can move it around as the board decides, but for the sake of a schedule, we pick that date. And if you pick that date, then there are some specific things that need to happen. I'm going to jump back again. To make that November 17th date work, the board would have to do a couple of things. There is a seeker process, which is looking at the environmental aspects of this. This project is pretty straightforward. So we believe this would be a type 2 action, which is the simplest kind to deal with. But the board would declare itself lead agency, and you would resolve that the seeker has been reviewed and approved, and no detrimental effects have been found. Now, that process would happen through the summer, the seeker piece of it. But on that date, right around the end of September, we're showing September 29th, you would approve seeker. And then you would do a resolution to authorize a referendum vote. Once that happened, you would want to have in your official school newspaper that you're going out for a referendum, and that would have to be no later than September 30th. And that date was picked because there is a 45-day to a 49-day window between when you put an official notice in the paper and when you can have the vote. So that's what we looked at, and we tried to pick a business day, not a weekend. So that's I think that's a Friday. Then during the 3 to 4 weeks prior to the vote, you would do final presentations to the public, and those would be in person, through meetings, on your webcast, and hopefully we'll be out of this scenario, so we won't have to do public meetings in this forum. It'd be great to be able to do them in the auditorium and to do them in the fire halls and every place else. Hopefully by that time we'll be able to do that. and that would lead to a vote in November of 2020. Then just to carry the schedule a little farther, so you understand the full schedule, if the vote was approved in November, then we would start working on the construction documents. And we're anticipating that would be from November to approximately June of 2021. Then we have to submit it to the State Education Department for their review process and approval. And we're assuming a 6-month review process. That has improved a little bit, but I always like to show the worst case scenario, because if it comes in better, everybody's happy. But that's what we potentially see for a review process. And then that would set us up for bidding this project in the December-January timeframe, which is ideal for a project of this size. The contractors are looking for work for the following summer. This is a perfect time to do it. We would bid it in that timeframe, and then construction would start in the spring of 2022 and would run through the fall of 2022. So you can see it's quite a long process. It's over a 2-year process from the time we're at this point of deciding to move forward, but, until we've completed construction. So that gives you just an overview of what the schedule could look like if you were to vote in November. And I wonder if anybody has any questions about that.
I have one, and Meg might be able to answer this. I mean, knowing when we started, September of 2017, and looking further ahead as to when the construction can actually start, is that to align it with the bonds coming off, Meg?
No, not just for that. It's just a matter of, like, I think, as Scott explained, that's really how long the process takes. I mean, it has taken us to this point to really define what we wanted to do. We weren't intentionally delaying it. And the process that Scott outlined from here forward is just how long those pieces take.
Okay, because I mean, like the public information campaign, we've been talking about this for a very long time. Out in the public, you know, it's been, you know, within our meetings, it's the facilities has reported on it. Almost every month they've addressed something to it. So like the campaign, you know, June to September, you know, I thought that was a little long, but I understand the whole process, you know, with the SED and the referendum and everything, but it just, it's work that we needed yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you look at the facilities, you look at the, you know, the driveway, but it just seems like it's such a long process.
I think part of the rationale too for you know, plenty of time for a public information campaign is, yes, it has been being talked about, that we've been thinking about it and working on it, but we have yet to relay to the public specifics of what the project really encompasses. And while I wasn't here the last time that we had a public vote on a capital project, it's my understanding that the public didn't necessarily feel like they were fully informed or had enough time to really digest the information that they were being asked to vote on. I mean, maybe someone who is here can opine on that more than I can.
I mean, some of those comments were said, but I think a lot of it had to do with the situation. Removing an elementary school, you know, was a tough sell to a lot of people. So I think with that all involved, and then nobody really wanted a school to sit there empty for very long, and when that could be taken care of. So yeah, I mean, it was a combination of things.
But I mean, what we're talking about is, I mean, either way, it's whether it moves the needle 30 days or not. I mean, construction wouldn't commence until the summer. So I think the greater the opportunity to provide the public with the information they need in order to increase the likelihood of success in getting this, you know, approved by way of referendum, the better. Because we have conceptually talked about it. We've had a couple drawings come before us, but until there's a public notice about the project in the paper with a dollar amount, it really kind of, you know, people don't pay a whole lot of attention to it.
We also just for clarity, we also, I mean, when we pared down the big list, Rhonda's right. We've had that list pared down to our tangible projects for 8-9 months. Good planning, we feel very comfortable. We want to, first of all, I want everybody as a board unanimous on this and very comfortable with it. That's what our trainings taught us, is that everybody's got to get behind it. Everybody, if anybody has any dissension in it, then we shouldn't move forward. We've put a lot of emphasis on planning, which has taken a little bit longer, but we've really put a lot of pressure on Scott and his team because we don't want surprises. And Meg has done an excellent job of working out the finances, reaching out to our financial partners because we don't want surprises. Our theme is we've taken a little bit longer on the planning aspects because we want the project to go smooth. We agree 100%. These parking lots have been needing attention for a long period of time. Unfortunately, we hadn't got to the planning to where we could actually look somebody in the face and say, hey, we think we actually have a solution where we can have a positive cash flow with the lighting replacements and all those things. Those pieces really just came in within the last 4 or 5 months with tangible numbers to put us in a good position. So we're from a facilities committee, we're extremely comfortable with this proposal, and it has taken a lot of planning, but we don't want surprises. We don't want to surprise the public after a bid. We don't want design changes. You may have a couple of those here and there, but we want to minimize all of that. So I think good planning on this part gives us a higher comfort level. We won't have that.
Mm-hmm.
And Scott, do you anticipate, like with the time frame of the construction starting September to fall, that seems like the ideal time for most building projects within a school district? Less chances of running, into problems with the students being in school during the summer?
Yeah, the schedule that we're showing is spring through the fall. Now, all the paving work would be done obviously over the summer. You want to do that when there's the least chance of interruption, but we'd want to hit that, heavy the minute we could in June, the absolute, the day that we're allowed, so that we can get in there and do that work. The roofing work could start potentially a little earlier, or that could go on at the same time. We envision most of these items would go on over the summer. This is not such a large project that you couldn't get a lot of this work done over the summer. Now, we show it going into the fall because that's the nature of construction. That seems like the last 10% of construction sometimes takes the longest, making sure that we get everything buttoned up completely and ready to go. So,
Right.
But that schedule is pretty typical. And the other thing is bidding it when we're proposing to bid it in midwinter of, December 21 through January 22. That's kind of an ideal time to bid. A lot of projects will bid in February, March, and April, and we want to be a little bit ahead of the curve because we'll get more contractors.
It also allows us, if we approve a contract, it also allows us to start the submittal process, where we can have material on hand the day that school ends, instead of us approving something and it says, well, we got 8 to 10 weeks of lead time for us to get the material on site. So having that a little bit earlier, like you said, February is typically the date, but if you have a December and January, you get that extra 4 weeks, 6 weeks of getting that material on site quicker.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Was there anything else we had to add?
Not from our standpoint. I think we're good. I think we covered all the bases.
Well, thank you everyone for all your hard work on this.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure working with the committee.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board? No, so we're pretty much in consensus to start the campaign process of it.
Ron, if I can throw just one thing in there with this.
Sure.
Paul mentioned earlier about the drainage, and just one thing that I just thought we ought to clarify, that we're not talking about just taking the top off the asphalt and making it smooth. This project goes all the way down into the sub base, would fix the drainage and address everything. So we're not just painting it over to make it look good. It's going to be a true repair and reconstruction. And that, as Graydon said earlier, that is one of the things that has kind of made this a little bit longer process and probably a little bit harder on engineering company that we're dealing with here, with Scott and these guys, because we've been very particular on exact answers and not, we've not been comfortable with counting on the projections. We're looking more for facts, and deadline, actuals. So,
Yeah, these poor guys have dealt with Kevin and I talking about slopes and sub bases, and we haven't talked about density of materials yet, but we got close.
we're getting there.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, again, like Rhonda said, for your hard work, and Miranda, you as well. So
Yes,
Yes.
thank
we
you.
definitely appreciate it.
Another one is our transportation director helped quite a bit with to pair these into an option that was usable. So don't forget Tracy as well. He helped out a lot with the patterns.
And John Jackson participated too.
Absolutely, John Jackson with the roofs has done an excellent job bringing those forward.
And I, for one, really like where the parent drop-off will be now. I just feel that it's much safer for the students. We don't have to worry about anyone getting out into traffic. So that's good. Thank you.
And the additional lighting in there too, those circles, if you guys see those in the parking lots, they've included a lot of additional lighting on those.
Good. All right. Guess that's it. You are more than welcome to continue with our meeting, but we understand that your screen goes black.
Okay. Well, thank you all. Once again, thank you all. And it's been a pleasure working with the committee, and we are looking forward to moving this into the next phase and moving it towards a successful referendum. So thanks again.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
I agree.
you.
Look forward to working with you. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Right. We are up for additional items to the agenda. There are no additions, correct, Corey?
Correct.
All right. Consent agenda. We have the financial reports. Where I just get my stuff in order here. The transfer of funds. And I did have one question. Meg, you're still on here. Okay. And Larry, you may know the answer. The gym floor, the work that went on that, was that to the high school gym or the middle school gym?
Both.
Both? Okay, so because we just did that high school gym last year, correct?
We just did recoding is what we did.
Okay, gotcha. All right.
It wasn't like sanding all down and repainting or anything like that. It wasn't that much, but it was a resealing of the area, a refreshing of it.
Okay. All right. And then I think that was it, just the financial reports and the budget transfers. Are there any questions on any of those? If not, do we have a motion to accept the consent agenda as submitted?
Marilyn makes a motion.
Second?
I'll
I'll
second.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. It's funny because I'm looking for like who's talking.
Right, the yellow
I'm in the
line.
Brady Bunch here.
Right.
And we have, for number 9, under new business, we have a couple of generous donations. The first one is $75 from Carl Vogel to purchase a beanbag chair for the elementary school library in memory of Valerie Vogel. And then we have $210 from the Delaware County Fitness to the Destiny Twyman Scholarship Award. Do we have a motion to accept those donations?
Arnie will make it.
Second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right, and I believe we are up to you, Mr. Thomas.
So I got a lot of comments from my folks. I will try to summarize them so that I don't go on forever with you, but it's a pretty good list. But before we do, Corey, is there anything that you want to mention to the board with respect to the ballots or the situation with anything like that?
We're working on it. We Hopefully we'll get our print items from the print shop within the next few days and get them out by early next week at the latest. Right now, I'm still working on the database.
And that's for the mailing labels, correct, Corey? For,
Yes,
yeah, this is so, it's going to be very difficult. I feel for you. I really do.
we've
Now
done our best.
with the budget vote, June 9th.
Yes,
Okay, so June 9th. And then it'll be done by absentee ballot, so the public knows.
correct.
At what date, I don't remember what date those ballots go out.
They have to be out by May 29th. We're anticipating them out maybe Friday this week, if not definitely early next week, assuming we get everything from the print shop on time, as they have said. And if people do not receive a ballot by the end of May, beginning of June, they can call me. I will check the database, see if one was mailed to them, where it was mailed, or I can send one out.
Okay, all right. And just in a conversation that I had today with the election ladies that work the election for the town elections, in the school district, just discussing how these votes are going to have to be hand counted.
Yes.
You know, and it's going to be a little bit longer process, but given, you know, today's situation, we have no other choice really.
I believe we anticipate appointing maybe a dozen inspectors, and they will be mostly staff. And that has been under advice of our attorney. And that's partly because of the coronavirus. Most of our staff are younger than the county trained inspectors.
Yep. All right.
So thank you, Corey. Justin Preston would like you all to know that is going to be holding a senior recognition ceremony for the spring athletes on the evening of May 26th. Each senior and their parent have been given a specific time slot, again, coronavirus issues, to come to their respective field with their uniform and take some pictures. They're going to be recognized by their coaches, and there will be a ceremony there for the seniors and their families. Also going to be broadcasting the annual athletic awards on our school's YouTube channel on June 1st at 6 p.m. Coaches are coming in tomorrow, actually, at designated time slots to record their speeches and the statements that they wish to make. PJ, our PR person, will be there to help to do the video and edit and that sort of thing. So those two events are coming up. Tracy at the Transportation Department reminds us that meals are continuing. The schedule actually is going pretty well now. It's a pretty well-oiled machine. We're doing over 1,000 meals a week. And Mondays, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday takes care of Thursday and Friday. However, this coming week, this coming Monday being a national holiday, we're not going to be sending any buses out. So buses that would normally go out on Thursday of this week will have meal through Monday, and then on Tuesday we'll do a Tuesday-Thursday run, and then we'll go back to our regular schedule. Continued cleaning, disinfecting on the buses, and a hearty thank you to everybody who has helped us take care of this, the meal delivery and the assignments and schoolwork delivery and pickup on a weekly basis. Amanda at the elementary school is reminding everyone that report cards are going to be a narrative with observations of the standards that they believe the students most likely have either met or addressed. There are some standards that, because of the kind of situation we're in right now, you can't necessarily evaluate those. And for those situations, for those standards, what we'll be doing is hopefully, since we're assuming students are coming back in September, that teachers will be looking at those fourth quarter standards from the prior year. So student comes into fourth grade, let's say, teachers will start out the year looking at those standards from third grade, fourth quarter, and gauge things at that point for the instruction going forward. So there's a plan to try to address all of this. And I know Amanda and her team have been working an awful lot on that, as has Adam and his group. He's got middle school folks coming in periodically, or their Zoom meetings. And I know Art is making constant contact with his staff as well. But staying with Amanda for a minute, she wants folks to know that the last round of Townsend schoolwork going home will be this coming Tuesday, May 26th. They usually have a packet. Students get the whole packet, usually is able to last them for a period of time. Plus, of course, there's the work that's being done online as well. She is also saying, I gave you a couple dates with Justin and athletics. Amanda is talking about the 22nd of May at 6 p.m., a YouTube UPK moving up ceremony. And also on YouTube at 6 p.m. on Wednesday, the 24th, will be the 5th grade ceremony with awards, slideshows, student collages, and kids all have to turn away from the computer right now because I'm going to say that parents are going to be getting the awards ahead of time. And when your name comes up on that YouTube channel, parents are going to just flip right out and give you that award. So there you are. Glad you didn't see that, kids. So there's one of the bigger picture pieces is that one of our programs, our reading programs, it's called Journeys, is no longer available. The company is actually doing away with that program and going on to other things, I guess. And so we have been, since early March, been looking with a team of staff and looking at other programs that support our scientific approach towards reading and our phonics program and all the things that we've been investing in over the last year and a half, 2 years. And the teachers have chosen a program called, it's 4 initials, CKLA, and which stand for Core Knowledge and Language Arts. It is a program, it's state accepted, it's scientifically based, and it does all the things that we would like it to. But there will be a shift into that other program, along with what we've been doing with the iReady program and the Letters program, all of those scientific pieces to try to move our reading scores. And we have Dr. Lori Ostrander from the BOCES coming in to work with the staff. I think I mentioned that at the last meeting. She's going to be working over the summer, either in person or maybe not. But she is going to be working with our staff as part of our iReady training. Lori is an employee of the BOCES, and up until this time, if you remember, I'd mentioned that we had to pay someone from the iReady program to come in and do the training, and that's a lot more expensive. So the BOCES has gone through the trouble of actually training an in-house person, and it becomes part of what we're paying for our BOCES services. It makes it cheaper and also makes it aidable as well. So one of the things that you and everybody else is going to be seeing in the mail, excuse me, not in the mail, in the press probably, is talking about the end of the year, when that might be. Now, there's a lot of, I'm going to say frustration on the part of the superintendents because we're not really getting, and we're at a point where we're not expecting a ton of guidance from higher ups with respect to guidelines on the closing of school for this year, because our buildings may be closed, but school is still open. So what we as a group of superintendents have done, and I guess this has been done in some other BOCES as well, but what we've done is we've all gone back to the accounting board, and we've taken a look at, we have to be in session 180 days in order to get aid for all of that. And we want to ensure that that's there. I've gone to Meg and we've counted out our days and everything. And what you're going to be seeing probably in the press is a letter from Perry Dewey, where he's going to actually delineate the different school districts and when the last day for students of instruction, last day for teachers, it's going to be. I just want to caution everybody a couple things. Number one, I have to say it's always tentative because we could get surprised toward the end of the year and the state may give us some other information, but at this point, we're not getting anything. So the dates are tentative to some extent, but, and the other piece is depending upon every school's individual calendar, you're probably going to get slight differences in when that last day is. So just by way of example, if a school district had, 188 days in their calendar for snow days, and we only had 186, that might have an effect on that. If they had more, if one school had more superintendent conference days in their academic calendar than another school, that might have an effect on that. So you're going to be seeing, I'm making it up here, but you're going to be seeing like the 13th or the 15th or the 17th or the 19th, of June, somewhere in those ranges, depending upon the school. But it's fairly close, but there's going to be a couple days probably difference between one and another. I know Meg has been talking with the folks at Kraft, and Kraft and the school district are going to be working together a little bit coming up, I think at the end of next week, for a food distribution. I'm not going to say an awful lot about it because some of the details still have to be worked out, but we're going to be working and supporting the folks at Kraft and working together. I believe we're going to use Townsend as a base. Was it Townsend or Meg, or was it the high school? It was high school, I think, the last time we talked.
Yes, middle school, high school.
Thank you. That'll be a food distribution. There'll be more news out about that, I'm sure. We're still in some of the formative pieces of that, but it's going to be happening very soon. A lot of craft products and some dairy products and things of that sort. Let's see, what else? I've mentioned to you that the staff has been coming in under very specific schedules and distancing with respect to making sure the rooms are cleaned out and set to go for the summer, so O&M can be working on those. That's continuing. You asked about the gym floor, so I told you that. District-wide safety committee met today. We're looking at updates to the safety policy, which of course will be coming back to you folks for your final approval. Most of those updates are name changes and dates and things of that sort, but there are a couple items that we are going to probably be adding to that policy. And it wouldn't be a surprise to anybody if I told you that there are things that deal with like pandemics and things of that sort, because we haven't had to deal with those kinds of things in the past. And so the language hasn't been quite as structured as what the state is looking for now. So that'll be in addition to that. And we'll certainly keep you in touch with that information as we move along. Today, like I didn't want to upset my my district clerk because she helps me out so much. But but today we received from the from SED and the all of the district superintendents of the state. They put together something that's called a thoughtful exchange, a thought exchange, and basically what it is, it's a website or a site online with a survey that is asking anybody who wants to get there about the reopening of schools. What are your thoughts about the reopening of schools? And so, as truly, I got this like at 1 o'clock or 1:30 today. So I contacted Corey and PJ, and I said, "Hey, can because the window to answer this information to get in on the survey may be less than a week." And so I wanted to get it out as soon as possible. So I contacted Corey and PJ and asked them to, put it into a reasonable form. And PJ has it up on the website. So if you go to the website, it's called a thought exchange. And there is a link there where anybody who's listening tonight, and I've asked the principals to let staff know as well, and to announce it on, it is on the website, on our website, but I've also asked that it go onto our social media. And even for the principals, I've asked them to put it on like their Twitter feed or their Instagram, just to let folks know. So folks have an opportunity to be talking about the reopening piece. But as I said, the window is not a big window to do it. So we're trying to encourage people to get out there and speak their piece. And the last thing is a question for you as a board with respect to budget hearing, just to consider if you about how we're going to be getting feedback from the public or questions during Meg's presentation next week. And I think that's all I had, with the exception of asking for an executive session to talk about the employment of a particular.
I had thought about that, and I had wondered if we can have Meg do a presentation prior that the public can view. They can get the information, they can start thinking about questions that they may want to ask, and then submit those questions prior to our actual budget hearing. And then we could be responding to those questions during that hearing. I think that might be the easiest way. Like I said, it would give people some time to absorb, what we're presenting. They can watch it and get their questions, thought about, and then present it or ask their questions through an email that we would answer. Does anybody have any other ideas?
The PowerPoint with the slides with the budget information is up on the website, and they could view that in advance. Would that accomplish what you're thinking, or you would want the narrative to go along with it?
I was thinking narrative. I don't know. I absorb things that way better, versus me just trying to figure out what the figures mean and, stuff like that. But that's just me. If anybody else has another idea, I'm open to it. I mean, this is all new territory for all of us.
It's tough because you're trying to be as transparent as possible.
Right.
And at the same time, it's hard to get that input. So
I would be concerned about, I guess if I did the narrative in advance, and then are you thinking we just answered questions on the 26th as opposed to reviewing the slides?
I'm fine with that because we would have that information as a board already, of course. So yes, we could answer questions on the 26th that were presented to the board.
I'm just looking at the calendar. We have a meeting on the 2nd, correct?
June 2nd, yes.
Another option would be to leave the slides on the website as they are and direct people to those, and they could submit questions in advance if they have them. Do the presentation with the narrative on the 26th, and then allow people to submit questions after the fact if they still had them and weren't able to submit them that night, and we could have a spot on the agenda on the 2nd to respond to this. That's just another thought.
That seems like a pretty straightforward process, Meg.
I'm just a little bit concerned about not having a presentation on the date of the public hearing. That part just concerns me a little bit.
Okay, yep, that's fine.
Yeah.
So I don't have my calendar in front of me. So June 2nd, we would be responding to the May 26th questions. And then is June 2nd the date that we also had to vote?
No, it's by the 9th.
Oh, the 9th. Okay, I'm sorry. Yep. Okay. So school vote. Yeah.
So PJ was planning to put information on social media tomorrow. Just, drawing attention to the budget information and the public hearing, and he could say that questions could be submitted in advance. And then we could either say then that after the public hearing they can be submitted, or we can say that the night of the public hearing. We just have to figure out what avenues we're going to make available to them to submit questions. Is it just emails to the BOE email?
I think that's tough. Great one. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, you try to be we're trying to be as open as possible and be as concise as possible. I would hate to miss questioning on receiving questions in different formats in different areas, missing something. I think the questions all directed to the BOE, if people could get that, would be great. The only other backstop is if somebody doesn't have a computer or something like that, they're going to not be able to see the questions anyway or the presentations. They could contact Corey, but aside from those two options, I don't know what else we have.
Right, and that's the thing with, if people were to call with questions, it's tough. I mean, this format that we're currently dealing in doesn't lend itself to more of a, conversation or transactional type of thing, conversation. So, but if someone were to call by phone or something, I don't know how you could, adequately convey the question to Meg, or if Meg were to address it with the person and say, a question that was raised was this, and this was the response to it. That's typically how we do, our, like the BOE emails or something like that. If something comes to us through BOE, we will relay that with our response for public communication. It's in lieu of the public input comment or a public input section of our meeting. So I don't know. I mean, but like Graydon said, some people don't have access to computers. Some people don't have the ability to be concise in emails and articulate what their actual question is. And I would hate to leave somebody wanting more information than we were able to provide them.
Right.
So talking about those that do not have the internet, do not have, access to just, right now, when does the report card go out?
It's already been filed with the state, and it's also included in the budget newsletter, but the budget newsletter isn't supposed to go out until after the public hearing. So we've asked the print shop to mail that on the 27th. So like I said, it's been filed with the state, and it also could be posted on our website at any time if it isn't already.
But there again, it doesn't reach anybody that doesn't have a computer until after the hearing.
Yes.
And then probably after our June 2nd meeting as well.
Most likely.
I definitely wouldn't have a live call-in session.
No, not live. I mean, that with what we have a this small number of participants on here, but a live call-in session, we've experienced feedback through speakers, different things, and it throws off the whole meeting. So I don't think it's something you can do live. And that's why I wasn't sure if there was, some other means that's acceptable through open meetings law for Meg or somebody to get the questions from the public and respond, but also respond in a more of a public forum. So
Would we have an extension that we could put out as a number with an answering service on it, that somebody could call and leave the messages on that extension with a desire to the public to have them? We would prefer email because it's easier to process, but still have something that a phone could just go to and not have to be, so Corey's not answering the phone all day on this. I'm just, because the situation I think is, this is very unique. It's going to be difficult to get to everybody, even though we're trying our best. But just trying to find a way to minimize the impact to Corey, also to the taxpayers, and open as many doors as possible.
Right, that would be a good idea for those that don't have this capability, to be able to, like the nurses, if your child's going to be sick, you call and leave a message on the nurse's phone. Is there a line that we can designate for incoming calls for people that have questions on the budget? Is that a capability? And I guess that might be a Rick question, to see if that's a possibility of doing that. That would give the opportunity for anybody that doesn't have a computer and are active voters to be able to ask a question and get that answered before they actually fill out that ballot.
Right. And the nice thing about, voice over IP is that it's typically scalable, so you can hopefully add those extensions, and also those questions may be able to be transcribed through our current voice over IP software provider. So,
Is there a way for us to provide frequently asked questions answers somewhere? Because I got a feeling that you're going to get very similar questions in very similar areas. Is there a fact page we can put up or something like that that may eliminate some of this?
You mean as a result of the questions that come in, Graydon?
I'm thinking ahead of time. So a lot of times people want to say, what does it cost per thousand? What are you projecting per thousand of tax assessment? That's a common question you get. What are your increases in, maybe people may say, what are your increases in food costs? What are your increases or decreases in energy expenses? Just to have some of those canned answers right up on a facts page potentially, so that you don't have those as part of the overall questioning.
Well,
Meg, how far was you looking to break your presentation down? If your presentation covered some of that, maybe that would eliminate some of the emails and phone calls. I don't know what your thought process was on how far.
I was planning to use the same slides that I used previously with the finance committee and with the board. Unless there's something that is identified as missing from those. It does not have tax rate information, as Graydon just mentioned. That is a little, that one is a little difficult just because the tax rate is different depending on what town you live in. But I can certainly give an estimated tax rate for where the towns are at 100% equalization rate, which does cover most of the school district.
And I just threw those out, Meg. There may be other questions, maybe they don't get those, but I'm just trying to think of groups of questions is all. That if your presentation just had a frequently asked questions section that people could ask now of us, then it would just help pare down the time frame at which they get the information and try to turn it around in a question for us.
well, my question also is, how can we get that information into the paper? Because like I said, we really need to address all groups. And if somebody relies on, for instance, in the past, we've always done a newsletter with the report card. So Meg, you said that's at print.
Yeah, the guidance from NISBA said it shouldn't go out till after the public hearing, so we've sent it to them and asked that it go out on the 27th.
That it shouldn't go out until after the public hearing?
Yes.
Hmm.
That was the first time I had seen that, and I don't know if we've done it that way in the past, but I did happen to see that this year.
And is that just because we're approving it at that point? It's official? 'Cause I would think you don't have a lot of changes between now and then. I mean, it's probably ready to go out now for questions. So what's the procedure that's preventing it?
There is,
Just
well,
the advice from NISBA.
and I apologize, it wasn't NISBA, it was Questar BOCES. It says districts are still required to mail out a budget notice after the budget hearing, but no later than 6 days prior to the June 9th vote. So I would say that the two things that are holding it up are, number one, it's being printed by DCMO BOCES print shop, and they're inundated right now with all the things that are having to be printed based on the way the vote is occurring. They're doing absentee ballots and, postcards and all those sorts of things. There is this year, there was a new requirement that we mail out a postcard to voters indicating when the vote was going to occur, when the public hearing was going to occur, who was a qualified voter, and that already went out. That was supposed to go out yesterday or today, so that should be in the mail. So individuals will have that notifying them of when the public hearing is, as well as the budget vote. So that piece has gone out and should reach pretty much anybody because it's being sent via the Postal Service.
Okay, so the only way that I see may work is, we need to get something in the paper. Well, no, because, we need to get something in the paper for people to ask questions that don't have access to the internet or to be able to view the budget hearing. We've got to get that out to people. We can't exclude anybody. So the only way that we can do that is to set up a phone line where people can phone in their question after the budget hearing. And then, like you said, on June 2nd, we can address all those questions coming in. And we should be able to weed through them. If a lot of them are the same, we should be able to weed through those and then, answering one time, not reading every single one, that are identical questions.
There is a legal notice that's, I believe, already been in the paper and being printed again. And it does say that individuals can come to district offices to pick up what we refer to as a budget book, which has a whole bunch of information, the actual budget, the report card, a bunch of statistical information that Corey prints off. So that has gone in the paper, and that it indicates that printed copy will be available at the high school, middle school, and Corey, is it your office?
Yes. As of Tuesday.
As of next Tuesday, that would be available. So that has been printed twice in the paper, and that would be an avenue for people to see the information if they didn't feel they could access it online.
And Corey, is it as of Tuesday that those offices are staffed? That we talked about those offices being staffed with clerical folks?
Yes, between 9 and 3.
So an individual could call after looking at that. They could call, or they could leave a message or a question with the clerical person who is there. I mean, that would be one thing.
Maybe we could even have a form available. They could fill out their question and leave it.
I mean, I don't mind my extension being the one for people to call with questions if we're comfortable with that.
Because
that
here's the thing, if people can't be on Zoom to ask the question, they aren't going to be on Zoom to get the answer. So they need the answer somehow. So, I mean, that's why I said that, whether it's through a voicemail that can be transcribed with a question and say, one question we received was, and then, so we're being as transparent as we can. And maybe that covers other questions that people may have had, but Meg is going to have to be the one, and is the one who's most equipped to answer those budgetary questions, to allay any concerns prior to that person casting their vote for or in opposition to the budget. And we want that to be a for. So, I think that she's going to have to talk to fair amount of people probably. So.
I
Our
could
global
certainly,
connects don't reach everybody, correct? Our global connects only do staff and parents of students.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
So Global
Because
Connect.
that would be a nice way if we had common questions, we could say we received these questions and here are the answers to them. But if that's not going to reach everybody either, that's not a valid avenue.
Well, I think a simple ad in the paper, letting people know that that is an avenue. If you do not have access to email, that you may call this number and direct your question there. And then that way, you know, then that may help respond, because a lot of people, I mean, everyone knows that not too many people, you know, are attracted to the legal ads. So this will give them, you know, just an ad in the paper. They'll see that, you know, it's been out there. They can, you know, obtain a copy through the district office or the school offices, but then that they can phone in a question if they should have it.
And I think, honestly, thank you, Meg, for offering that. I think if they go directly, if we have a phone line that goes, their extension goes to Meg, it's got to go to Meg to be answered anyway. So
Right.
Let's just have Meg handle those, and then she can have the ability to say on her presentation, this is the groups of questions we got. Here's the answers to them.
Mhm.
You know, as she's answering them.
I do think that my feeling is that if we can still get a separate dedicated line, because that way when the person leaves the message with a question, Meg has the time to look at the budget, come up with an answer, rather than coming off task, having to shift her mind, her thinking, whatever, you know, grabbing that thing, answering, then she loses time. Whereas if she blocks out a portion of her day just to call and respond to folks who have questions, because I would hate to see that show up time in your day, Meg.
I think that would be better as well. Yeah.
We'll have to ask Rick about a dedicated line.
Would it, instead of calling each person back, would radio do us a better if we could schedule a interview with Meg to answer those questions? With
Yeah,
one
but
of the
then if
radios?
they missed it, they're not gonna be able to hear their question.
Yep.
So I think it's
I'm
gonna
just
have to
thinking
be.
if 15 people
individually.
call in with the same question, that's 15 phone calls to answer the same question. But,
Yeah.
okay.
Corey, do you know what?
I think you've got a good process right there. You're going to have to pick it and say, this is the best we can do, and just go with it, because I think we could probably debate a million different ways to
Right.
do it. But
Right. And at the end of the day, with a month
We're
of
ready.
lead time, we could come up with a better way. We don't have a month of lead time. We have a week. So
And we may have already spent more time on it than we'll have in phone calls.
maybe.
probably. Most of our lives is probably fighting, you know, preparing for battles we'll never fight. But, you know, if we didn't, then it wouldn't be great.
Exactly.
Okay.
Rhonda, can you just summarize, I guess, what we're looking to do then? We kind of went around with a conversation, and I just want to be sure we're on the same page before we wrap it up.
Yes. So for those that are able or have access to the computer and the internet, we will do the presentation on the 26th. We will have people email their questions, and then we will respond to those questions on June 2nd. Those that do not have access to the internet, we're going to have to take an ad out to let people know that it's available. The budget booklet is available through the offices, and that they can phone into a certain, whatever, you know, a designated line, and then you will respond to those ones.
So you're talking an ad separate from the legal notice?
I would, yes.
Yes. Corey, do you know what the timing is to get something in the reporter? Like, I'm thinking we missed the deadline for this week. Are we able to get it in for next week?
Probably for next week, but not this week.
Okay. So it wouldn't go in until after the public hearing?
But it would still go in before the actual vote.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that's, you know, we need to let people know that, you know, before they go to vote and they have questions, we want them to go to, prior to them filling out that ballot, I keep saying go to vote, but prior for them to fill out that ballot, that they have their answers, to their concerns or their questions.
Okay.
I don't see any other way around it. We want to make sure that we reach all people, the best we can.
Remember when we had a public access channel where our meetings were actually aired?
Yep.
Way back when.
Yep. All right. So are there any other?
I
questions?
said one other item that I had on another sheet here, but Jane O'Shea was wondering whether or not the board curriculum committee still wanted to have a virtual meeting before the end of the year. I told her that I would ask you folks tonight if you're still interested in having that, and she can arrange that if you're interested in doing that.
I know I'm on that committee, Marilyn.
I am too.
Yes.
So it's okay with you two
Yes.
So you want to
right,
have
so
the meeting?
to have the meeting? Yeah, to have a curriculum committee meeting.
Yeah, it would be like this. It would be it'd probably be a Zoom
Yeah.
meeting.
Okay. If she wants to do it,
Okay.
Right. If there's
Send
nothing
out
else.
dates. I'll send out dates, potential
Okay.
dates for that, okay?
you,
That's it.
And Larry, you had a need for executive session as well for the purpose of discussing a matter relating.
To the employment of a particular individual.
Okay. Do we have a motion to go into exec?
And were you doing contractual negotiations also? Were you going to be discussing contractual negotiations or not?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Motion.
Second,
second, Marilyn.
Thank you.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, and then at this time, we'll be entering executive session. The board will not be taking any action after executive session. Therefore, we will ask in advance to return to general session and adjourn the meeting. Do I have a motion? Was that
I'll
Arnie?
second.
Okay.
Graydon.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay. I will.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.